Alrighty, inside the bowler now, working on this seat bracket. What I did is I left a couple little pieces of the original seat bracket there, the fiberglass, cut the wood away. And you can see I have a new piece of wood clamped onto there. And I've got a little piece of fiberglass set in there that's drying and a piece in there that's drying. And then once those are set, then I'm going to put in the rest and cut out the original pieces that I'm using as guides. So while that is setting up, I'm now working on the window. So the problem I have with this window opening is it is too wide and too short. So I'm going to handle the wide part first, well, height part first. So you can see I've put on a little bit of foam board on the bottom here. That's just taped on the outside, and I have some pieces of wood clamping it in place on the corners just to kind of keep some pressure on that foam board so that it lines up evenly with the outside edge of the bowler. I'm going to use some Long Strand Fibreglass filler and put a layer on there. I'll probably wind up putting on another layer after that. And then we can worry about cutting out the shape. So I'm going to wind up taking out a little bit more on this end here to account for the length of the window that's going in. But let's start with filling in this gap that needs to be filled in. Going at it with some Long Strand Fiberglass filler here. Now, some people would suggest that I could be using a sheet like matte, fiberglass mat, and yes, I probably could, but this is what I used on the other window, and I kind of thought rather than experiment with a new technique, why don't I go with something that I know works. Maybe it's not the best, but it works, and it did a good job on the window on the far side. So that's why I'm continuing with this. And I just mixed up a relatively small batch of this fiberglass resin. I don't want to be left with stuff hardening before I have a chance to apply it. So this is going on, it's about 1/8 of an inch thick as it goes on to this piece. And as you can see, I'm getting crossover from the piece I'm putting in, or the fill that we're doing, and the existing trailer, so that's good. All right, that's the first pass. I'm going to let that harden up, and then we'll do another pass. To fill in a little bit farther up. That's a good start. I'm happy with that. So this has now set, and I'm putting on the second part of this. I used a little, maybe too much hardener here, so I have to work kind of quickly. Okay, and there we are. That's set, or all put in place. That should be enough. when I get the, I'm going to use a little bit more of this Long Strand Fibreglass to kind of fix the frame that'll go all around the window to the window, and then probably a little bit more just to kind of fill in gaps and so on around the place. But that's that process, filling in a gap. So the fiberglass has had a chance to set, so I can now remove this little form. And away we go, done. Look at that, perfect. This stuff is the foam board you get at the dollar store, but it's the dry eraser board, so it's got a nice shiny surface, and of course fiberglass doesn't stick to it, and you're left with a nice smooth finish here. Now, I'm probably going to muck that up because I'll do a little bit more filler all around here, but anyway, this is nice stuff to work with. You can see it just peels away instantly. So now I have a rough form that I can use now to make the windows. I'm going to trace the template for the other window, and then I can mark that on here so I know where to cut. And of course, there's a little bit of fill to be done in each of the corners to make it rounded off. But that's the process of filling a gap. So I just taped a piece of cardboard onto the outside of that window. And now I've traced with a little Sharpie all around the inside, so I now have the profile of the window. Now I can take that cardboard off, place it over here, and I know where I want to be cutting. So, like a bit, just holding this template up here. I know that I want it even with the top of this, although I need it to be up 1/8 of an inch on this side. And I want it even with this edge here. That's where I want to cut. And there can be some fine tuning going on post this operation, but that's what I'm after. So I'll make that cut with the jigsaw. Just a little bit trimming off here and cut out that bit there. And then we can start working on the wood frame that'll go inside. Now to box in this window. Sorry for the shaking camera there. And what I've got is some wood that I've cut down to 1 3/4, or so 1 1/4 by 3/4. This is some spalted maple. I wanted to use a hardwood for this, for its a little more durability, and it'll be wrapped in fiberglass and/or resin to protect it from the elements. So, mind you, it's inside, so it shouldn't get much elemental exposure. Anyway, what I've got is a piece cut to 30 inches long. I have it positioned and clamped in place. I will have a piece that run up either side. Of course, I can't hold them all together, but a piece on this side, there'll be a piece on that side, and then this will go across the top. And there'll be a little bit of trimming to do once all that is in place. But that's okay, we can do the trimming later. Also, there'll be a piece that sits in here to kind of round off the corner. But we'll get to that in a little while. So that's what I'll be doing to hold these pieces in place is putting some long strand fiberglass on the edge of this piece. So I'm just gonna kind of lather it on here on this surface, fix it to here, and then I'm going to screw it in place from the outside. Those screws are temporary, they're just there to hold it while that fiberglass sets. And then once it's set, I can take those screws out and this will effectively be glued in place until I can get the fiberglass matting from here around the entire piece. So I'm hoping to try again wrapping this entirely, or at least getting it in place with quite possibly more short strand fiberglass, just to kind of keep the whole thing completely encapsulated. So that is the plan. Back in a minute. Just drilling some pilot holes here to hold these, hold this piece in place. I'm just going to put the screws in so I know where they're going to go. Okay, so the idea is once the fiberglass is put onto that little wooden piece, the short strand or the long strand fiberglass is put on that little piece, then the screws are drilled in. That'll draw it, of course, the wood in tight against the fiberglass, spread the fiberglass resin around evenly across the board. In fact, I'm expecting it to ooze out over the top and even the bottom, and then I can make some adjustments to it. So I'm going to do this just one board at a time, just so that I have the opportunity to get the fiberglass where I want it. Of course, the other trick I'm going to do is mark on this board where these screw holes are, because in the heat of the moment, with the board completely covered in fiberglass, short strand fiberglass, or long strand fiberglass rather, and trying to get it into place and then positioned and so on, not knowing where the screws are is a real pain in the neck. Okay, take that out, we'll mix up a little bit of fiberglass, put this back on. Okay, I got the fiberglass on there. That's screw handy. And this is setting up, I put on a little too much resin, so this is a bit of a trick. A little too much hardener rather. But that worked as I wanted it to. The resin is spreading around a little bit in here. Just squeezed out a little bit, which is good. And there'll be more to put on afterwards, but that's good. Just gonna go check the inside. So I just added a couple extra clamps just to help keep it on. These screws, of course, are going to come out once that resin has set and we have it all kind of baked in. All right, I'm going to go set up this piece here, get that ready for mounting. So the second piece for the window frame has been set in place. I used a square to get it lined up perpendicular to the bottom piece. So that's exactly where I want it. It is flush with the end of that piece. It's exactly where I want it. And I drilled in the holes, or screws to hold this in place, marked where those screw holes are. So now I can just go put some more fiberglass on this piece and we'll put that one in. So I have the wood portion of the frame now put in place and set, and I'm just working now on these little corner brackets. So I've cut some spalted maple to fit there, and I'm just going to glue and pin nail those in place. They just need to be held there until I can get some fiberglass and resin completely enclosing it. So that's what I'm going to do now. Just put some glue and pin nails in the four corners, and then we can work on fiberglassing the whole business. So there's the window opening with the rounded corners now. What will be required is, of course, going to put in some resin, some Long Strand resin in there, and of course all four corners. These were previously, I cut the fiberglass there rounded, but with this little corner piece, I want to make sure that I get everything right way back in here. There was a little bit of a gap that I wasn't happy with, so I just kind of cut that fiberglass away so I can get right back to there and make that a solid fiberglass fill. All right, that's our next task. So I have now got the fiberglass filling in the corners here and a little bit on the edge. I've also filled in some of the holes that were on the bottom here and filled in some of the holes that were up here on the top, just along this section where the old window used to be, and down here where the old window used to be. So I'm just waiting for that to set up, then I'm going to sand it, and then I'm going around both windows now just to apply some putty just to even up the surface a little bit. There's a lot of sanding that needs to happen to get back to an original smooth surface. This is the original smooth surface here. So this has been 2 layers of paint. It looks like a primer, and then this paint. Pretty sticky paint this stuff is, but it's also textured and really captures the dirt. So I want to sand that right off, and that's a huge job. As I've been discovering on forums and so on, that sanding is a 2-week, 3-week, 4-week, big part of the process. Anyway, that's where we are. Just thought I'd give you a quick little update this morning, and I'll come back when I have a little bit more putty put on. And that is the window now with all the compound in there, the Bondo, and some putty just to fill in some of the cracks. I still need to go over it with 22480 and stuff, get it ready for paint, but that's a whole nother process. What I'm going to do now is just kind of cover it with primer, and I'm going to spray on a top coat of white paint just to cover it, because the primer, as you can see, I put some primer on the lower portion, so it's quite dark gray. It would stand out, but I'm just going to prime all around there and then put on a top coat of white paint just to hide it a little bit. I've gone through the other side. I've got the putty on the far window. I just have to do a little bit of fine sanding on that, and I'm ready to prime that as well. And there we are with a little lick of paint and the window installed. So that's how it's going to be. I just need to order a window for the other side, but that's quite an improvement over the original, well, not the original, but over the slider windows that were put in there when we got the trailer. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. A lot more detail about how I dealt with the windows. If you enjoyed it, please click like. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. I'll see you on the next video.